get it. All right, all right. What's up, everybody? Let's make sure everything looks good. Give everybody a chance to get in. If you're watching the replay, welcome. My name is Markia. I'm known on social media as the Money Plug. I'm a board certified credit repair specialist and credit score consultant. Use my platform to educate consumers on the importance of credit literacy, how to manage your credit properly, and how to build and repair your credit yourself. Um, so I told you guys I would get back on and I would re-record the DIY step-by-step video. The most important step, of course, being the first one. So this video is going to start off with me explaining that first step in the DIY credit repair process. And then, as always, I'm going to open it up to a full question and answer kind of thing. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments. I'll make sure that I am going back and forth between all the platforms so that I can answer everybody's questions. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm currently live right now on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and inside the Facebook group. If you're not going to be able to watch it the whole time, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, WWTMPD, What Would the Money Plug Do, so that you can catch the replay or join my Facebook group. The Facebook group is called Plugged In, the Credit Clubhouse. And as soon as I'm off the live, I'll go ahead and approve you guys, and you'll be able to see past lives as well as, some questions that a lot of the group members have had and I've answered. But further ado, for those of you who have been following me for a while, you know that I'm extremely passionate about educating you all on the proper way to dispute without having to claim fraud and identity theft if that is not the case for you. And so what I wanted to do was to explain why the first step is always pre-dispute, not necessarily 611, 609, and things like that, like a lot of you have come to see in these Facebook groups. Now, remember, anything that I say may not apply to your situation specifically, so practice discernment whenever you are taking any tips off of social media that may work for other people. Just make sure you evaluate your own credit profile because results will vary. Now, the first step in the credit repair process should always be a personal information update. Now, for a lot of us who were not credit literate before finding out that we had bad credit, it's important for you to pull your credit consistently. I do it once a month. Some people do it once a quarter, but I always pull my reports because you need to know what's reporting on you at all times. Remember, there are third-party reporting agencies out here who are getting all of as much information about you as possible and then providing it to the credit bureaus. This could be incorrect spellings of your name, your cousin addresses that you probably applied for a bank account with when you stayed with them for a week or two. Like, it's so much information out there about you that you probably didn't deem relevant, but they're going to report on it. So it's important that you know what these are at all times. You're so welcome. Somebody said your advice to pay to delete for 30% was spot on. Thanks a million. Oh, you're so welcome. Okay. So how do you update your personal information? Or maybe you tried to update your personal information at one point in time and they told you that they couldn't because, hold on. Sorry, the perks of living by an airfield. So maybe you tried to update your personal information previously and they told you that they can't because that information is tied to an account and you have no idea what account it's tied to. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about what an enhanced personal information update is and how to do it so that you can not only identify what information needs to be removed, but you're able to kind of track the connection between a derogatory account and the personal information that's being reported with that account. What is your on like a dead and you don't want to... Can you redo your question, Carolyn? I'm not quite sure what you're asking me. Can you redo your question? Oh, you're so welcome. Okay. Now, the first step is going to be you need to make an Experian.com account. Experian.com is free. You don't necessarily have to sign up and get a credit monitoring account with them. As long as you sign up for the free account, that'll work for you. And I always do Experian. This was just how I was taught, I guess you could say. I've never really had to do it with the other two. This information will always work for me, and then I just copied my letters and sent them to all three credit bureaus. So a personal information update letter is just a letter where you outline what you want the credit bureaus to report as far as your name, your date of birth, your social security number, your address, your employer, things like that. A lot of people think that debt collectors or creditors only add information to your profile based off of your social, but that's not always true. A lot of companies don't even keep your social security number on file anymore because of the data breaches, right? So they have other ways to identify your account. And so with that, they use the other information that's available in your personal information section to verify or validate information pertaining to an account. So let's say you apply for a credit card. All of that information that you're entering while applying for a credit card is now considered reportable information once you submit your credit application. And so that is the information that's going to report to the credit bureaus and will likely populate on your credit report. In the event that maybe in the transference of that information, they could fat finger something and the name is spelled incorrectly. That incorrect spelling could also be placed on your credit report. Let's say you apply for something with a parent or a co-signer or something like that. Sometimes it's possible that the co-signer or whomever could end up on your credit application too. This is called a mixed or a merged credit file. Now, this is another reason, like I said, why it's very important for you to know what's reporting on you at all times. I always tell you guys, pull your LexisNexis once a year. Like, without a doubt, you need to know what information is available out there on you so that you kind of know what to expect during the dispute process. So you're going to go on Experian.com, and once you log in, you're actually going to go up at the top. It's going to say reports and scores, and then you're going to click on credit reports. Now, once your report pops up, you're going to pick anything, probably like the first thing that you see, and you're going to click on it as if you're going to dispute the account online. We do not dispute accounts online, people. I've gone over this multiple times. When you dispute online, you're waiving some of the rights given to you by the FCRA, and you're making your dispute process just this much harder. So you click on it, and you're going to enter the dispute center. You're going to click on start a new dispute, and a credit report is going to pop up that looks a little different than what you saw initially. At the top, you're going to see a 10-digit number. I want you to write that number down. If you try to copy and paste the number, just make sure you write down the last two numbers of the report number, because when you go to paste it into the next step that I'm going to tell you about, those last two numbers are not going to populate because of the dashes. So make sure you write down the number without the dashes so that you know what the report number is. That is very important. Now, once you have that information, you're going to you're still in the dispute center, but what you're going to do is you're going to recall that report, because it's going to identify some very important information for your enhanced personal information update letter. So I want you to go to this website. It was given to me as a separate link because I don't want to close that one tab that you have open. So open up a new tab, and you're going to go to experian.com/NCAC online/dispute. That is the website, and I'm going to include it in the description. Once the live is over with, I'm going to include it in the description on Facebook as well as on YouTube so that you guys can have the link yourself. When you pull it up, you are going to see something that says access by report number. You're going to pull your report that specific report based on that specific report number. So right here, you're going to enter your report number, you're going to enter your social security number, and then you're going to enter your email address twice. Please make sure this is an email address that you actually have access to. Now, once you submit it, this is the information that you're going to need. And you're going to scroll down a little bit. There's going to be like a little button that says expand all. Go ahead and click on it. It's going to save you a little bit of time, because once you scroll down, you're going to see a lot of information, just a lot more numbers than what you're typically used to when you're looking at your credit report. And these numbers kind of hold weight, right? We're going to break that down in a second. Oh, thank you. So first thing I always do is I copy and paste the report. I copy the report and paste it into a Microsoft Word document just so that I can have something to reference later, and I don't have to go through all these steps to kind of do it again, if that makes sense. So once I copy, paste it, and save it, then I'm going to go over it. I'm going to go through it. You're going to go to the derogatory account section. This is very important. I always tell you, start at the derogatory account section, write down the derogatory account, and then write down the address identification number for each account. Now, you're going to go, once you're done all that for all the accounts, you're going to go up to your personal information, and you're going to look at the addresses. And you're going to scour the addresses for each address's address identification number. And you're going to match them up. So this address is being reported by this account. This address is being reported by this account. This is going to allow you to do a more targeted approach for your personal information dispute letter. Like I said, it's going to show you the relationship, so you know exactly what account is reporting that. This is important if they try to tell you because, and I'm probably skipping a step a little bit. You're going to look at the positive accounts too, but you want to make sure that all of your positive or open reporting accounts all have the most recent information on you. So if it's reporting an old address, you're going to want to contact those companies to update that before you send off any letters. That's definitely important. But you want to be able to make sure, one, that they are all reporting the same information, all of your open and positive accounts, and two, that your derogatory accounts aren't reporting the same information, even if it is, right? So let's say that you've never moved, your address is still the same. Are you still supposed to do a personal information update letter? And I'm going to tell you yes. You see that address identification number is very specific. So that if this address was to be removed from the credit report and then repopulated exactly as it was previously, the address identification number is now different. This makes it harder for that company to verify this information because when you look at it, the address identification number that they have is not going to match the new one that was populated once this address kind of repopulated. So you're still going to dispute the information, but it's definitely important that you identify the relationships that these addresses have to these accounts, because the addresses is probably like the most important part. And then you can do the same thing with your name and stuff like that as well. So I know that was a lot of information. We're not done yet. After you have all of this information, when you go to draft your actual letter, you're going to input this information into the letter. And it's a little bit more detailed than what you'll typically do for just like if you've purchased my kit, it's a little more detailed than the one that you'll see there. That one is just like, hey, I'm very unassuming, I just pulled my credit and saw this. Can you fix this? Now, if you do that and it doesn't work, then you can try a more targeted approach like this one. So you'll say that my name, so let's say you are removing a variation of your name. You'll say, my name is first name, last name. I do not have any other names or aliases. I do not desire any other names or aliases to be reported. And if any are reporting, please delete them now or provide proof of the legitimate authority to report this information and who is reporting this information, as they are infringing on my consumer rights. That is what you're going to say. Now, if you'll notice, it's very litigious. Very lawyer-esque, right? So we don't always want to start off being very aggressive like this. So I do suggest that you try the original personal information update letter first, and then if it doesn't work, kind of go this route. But again, it's always your preference. You don't have to do it this way. This is just what I suggest to people, simply because it's worked this way for me. Now, again, results may vary. So if you have addresses, now addresses are a little harder to remove sometimes, but if you give them pause, right, if you give them a reason to doubt the validity of the information reporting, then they have to remove that information, and then at the completion of whatever investigation, the information will be repopulated. Now remember what I said, whenever the address or the name is removed, even if it's repopulated exactly how it was previously, it has a new address identification number, and that is the goal. So if you are trying to remove an address, you're going to write my current and only address is, and then you're going to enter your address. I do not have any other current addresses. I don't desire any other addresses to be reporting as my current address. And if any are reporting as my current address and it does not match what I have provided, please provide proof of your authority to report this, as well as who is reporting this information to you, as they are infringing on my consumer rights. Period. That is what you're going to say. Now, let's say the addresses that they're reporting on you aren't necessarily incorrect, but it is probably like your aunt's address or your dad's address or something like it's a family member's address. So like it might tie to you, but it's not necessarily yours. Under that, you can put, listen, this is my dad's address and I don't live there, nor is this address, nor do I receive mail at this location. Per the FCRA, please delete this address immediately, as this is proof that your company has illegally merged my credit profile with that of another person's, and it is hindering my ability to obtain credit, period. That's what you're going to say. So that's like another little bullet that you can put under the part where you're changing your address. And you'll do something like that for each item that you actually want reporting. I always tell people, you don't have to list all the things that you want removed. When it comes to your personal information update letter, you're going to list all the things that you want reporting and then tell them to remove anything that does not match that. And the reason why I say that is because you don't see every single address that's being reported on you. You're just seeing what they want you to see, in a sense. And so If they have additional addresses or something like that on you, that you're just not seeing at the moment, you listing all the ones you want removing is not really removing all of the addresses. You get what I'm saying? So you definitely want to put what you want reporting and then tell them to remove everything else. What if the address is tied to a bankruptcy? So if your address is tied to something like a bankruptcy or a judgment or something like that, either way, when you, how do I say this? If you want the bankruptcy report, if you're not looking to remove the bankruptcy, it's not going to do anything for the bankruptcy specifically. Once you dispute it, give them reason to pause, they have to stop reporting, right? So then even if the information is repopulated exactly how it was reporting before, it has a new address identification number, and that makes it just slightly harder to verify certain information. Now, when it comes to a bankruptcy, there are separate steps to removing a bankruptcy, so the bankruptcy probably will keep coming back as valid if you're not taking any additional steps. However, for other accounts, it'll make it a little harder for them to just verify or validate based off of that information. They'll have to dig a little bit deeper, and that's what we want. We want to make their job harder. We don't want to make this easy on them. Why would we want to do that? We don't want to pay this shit, right? That's like the goal. You don't want it on your credit report. So you want to keep bringing into question the validity of the debt, and by disputing your personal information, that's going to allow you to do that. Now, like I said, the reason why you want to update your personal information first, this is a pre-dispute process, right? This is something that you're going to do well before you actually send off your very first dispute letter. So, you know, I don't want you sending this letter off with anything else. This letter goes out first. And then I typically wait like 2-3 weeks. It really just depends on if my client has gotten a response back from the credit bureaus, or if I've seen things fall off their credit report, and then I'll send off their round one letters. That's typically how I do it. Because we want to make sure this letter was received and processed before we start disputing, because the whole point of sending that letter in was to aid in the dispute. What is your credit card like? Gold in a slot and you pay for it, but it doesn't actually like go through, if you know what I mean. I'm sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about. So yeah, I can open it up to questions. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. I'm going to post the entire YouTube video, so if you can't stay the whole time, you can drop your question in the chat and then I'll answer it. You can go back and watch it later. And if this was the only reason that you were watching the video because you wanted to see the first step in the dispute process, you can go ahead and stop watching here, because after this we're going to do the Q&A. So what questions you guys got for me today? You guys got me for about an hour. Woof. Oh shoot, I gotta make sure I'm flipping between all of them. I'm sorry, I wasn't flipping between all of them. Even though something was removed from my report, should I try and get the amount lowered? So just because something was removed from your report does not mean you no longer owe that money. So whatever you want to negotiate with or for it, go for it. So let's say you got a charge off removed miraculously, right? Let's say you got a charge off removed. You still have to negotiate that settlement with the creditor so that it does not repopulate. That's the important part, right? So you'll reach out to them and you'll say, hey, you know, listen, you don't have what it takes to report on this debt. That's cool or whatever. If I settle this with you right now, will you just not report, period, number one? Because if it's not reporting, then they don't have to report, is what I'm getting at. And then number two, can I settle for less than owed? A lot of these companies just want their money. They don't care how much they get or even, when you pay. They just want the money. Now, the higher you go, the more likely you are to get a pay to delete with a collection, right? Or a charge off that is not reporting, but has the authority to report. That's something completely different. But, I always say you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you got something removed, I would reach out to them to see if they'll take a lower amount, because you still owe them regardless. And the worst thing that they can tell you is no, pay us in full. And then you just pay them in full. Literally. That's it. But your question is why I hate a lot of these social media or these credit related content creators, because they'll keep telling you guys that you don't have to pay and that you can get these items taken off. But what they don't tell a lot of you is that you still have to go back and make a payment. Otherwise, it's going to repopulate. And when it does, it's going to have a harsher effect on your credit. Once you start the pay to delete letter process, how long does it take for them to respond? Well, they have the same amount of time to respond as if it's a dispute. So 45 business days. If they do not respond within the 45 business days, then you feel free to move on to the next step, which would be a debt validation letter. Is electronic signature means validated, but like the electronic signature should still be visible, right? Instead of just being typed saying electronically signed. They need to provide proof that the identification was verified when electronic. So usually that's providing an IP address. Your IP address is unique to you. So they would likely provide your IP address, or maybe like there was a part where you had to write and sign or something like that. But usually when I see electronic signatures, I see IP addresses tied to them. If you don't see that, then you need to ask them specifically for that to prove that you were the one who signed that document. So if I own an apartment, should I pay it off or just keep building my credit? It's 4 years old. It depends on what your goals are. Some people don't have to because like it's not hindering them in any way. Some people, they can't get another place until they handle that apartment debt. So when you guys ask me questions like that, it's all based off of what your goals are. Now, if you're asking me how to remove it, that's a separate question. But whether or not you should remove it is something that you have to ask yourself. My job as a credit repair specialist is to let you know your options and the consequences of each action, and then you decide from there how you would like to proceed. So not removing an apartment account can lead you to be sued if it's not past the statute of limitations. It can also hinder you from getting another property, whether it's rental or owning. So it's really up to you. I have late payments from 2020. I've paid off the card and it's been closed for a year. What do I do? So if the account is closed, you kind of have two options. One, you can request a copy of the payment history and force the company to prove that you were actually late. Or you can just ask them nicely to just update the late payments to paid as agreed if you had a relatively good relationship with them. Asking them to just update it, you're at their mercy. So, if they tell you no, you just kind of have to eat that. And if you're asking them to prove the validity of these late payments and they prove that, then again, you're just going to kind of be stuck with that. The thing about late payments is that I really want you to focus on rebuilding, not necessarily repairing that, in the event that it does not go the way you want it to when you do go to fix it. The rebuilding part is not an exact science, but it's typically said that 7 on-time payments can cover up 1 late payment. So if you can add accounts to your credit profile to bury that late payment, and remember, the older they are, the less of an effect it has on your credit score. But as time goes on, the more on-time payments you have will bury that late payment. Something else you might want to look into that I typically tell people is adding prepaid credit cards to your credit profile. They don't report credit utilization, but they add that on-time payment history, which is what you're really needing right now. So if I only owe $450 for a broken lease, pay it off. It's how you pay that makes a difference with this stuff. So if it's in collections, no, you don't just pay it off. You try to negotiate a pay to delete. If it's not in collections and it's just and it's not even reported on your credit report, but it's maybe reporting on your tenant screening, what you can do is you can reach out to the company and you'll say, hey, listen, I'll give you the $450 for the broken lease if you stop reporting to the credit bureaus. And then if they agree to it, you'll go ahead and make your payment. You need to make sure you have a copy of the agreement and proof of payment, and that's going to be your ticket to getting the item removed from your credit report. Is it worth canceling a store credit card I will never use and take the hit to my credit? Yes. I always say if this card is no longer valuable to you, fucking close it. Because what's going to happen is if you're not using it and you don't use it for an extended period of time, then the company now has the right to close this account whenever they want. I would rather you do a targeted closing so that you can expect the drop in your credit score and rebuild now, as opposed to you get into the home buying process and you're at closing and they close your credit card right then and there. That's going to be a huge blow to you and your credit score. Because whenever you close an account, that drops your credit score. So I would rather you do a targeted closing than to just wait for them to close it because you're not using the card. Remember, a credit card is only valuable to you as long as you're using it. So removed doesn't mean delete. It's not the same thing. Removed and delete is the same thing, but removed and absolved of having to pay any debt is two different things. Just because something isn't reporting on your credit report anymore does not mean that you no longer owe that debt. That is why when you dispute a collection and they remove it, it'll likely repopulate under a new name because you never settled the debt. So they just sold that debt to somebody else so that they could try their hand at collecting on it. No, I did not say that secured cards don't report utilization. Secured cards report utilization. Prepaid credit cards are something different. Prepaid credit cards is where you put money on a card and that is the card's balance. So it has like no predetermined limit. Whereas a secured credit card, you put a deposit down on this account and that is your credit limit, period. you can go up to it, pay it down. You never have to put down another deposit unless you're increasing your credit limit. With a prepaid credit card, it works just like a prepaid debit card, right? Like y'all remember those green dot cards people used to have where you put money on the card and that's your debit card? That's literally what a prepaid credit card is. Two of my favorites are the Credit Sesame Cash account and the Extra Credit Debit Card or whatever it's called. But those are my two favorites. What about late payments during the pandemic? People have been using the pandemic as an excuse to get late payments removed this entire time, even now, because there are areas that are still heavily affected by the coronavirus. So as long as you make you humanize your story, drop a couple tears, maybe, I don't know, but as long as you humanize your story, that might work. It really all depends on who looks at your letter that day when it comes to these goodwill letters, because Capital One told me no 3 times before they finally told me yes. So it literally just depends on who you're talking to. How do I handle a recent charge off? Pay it, first of all. So if you have a balance, you want to pay the balance on that charge off, whether you have to settle for less than owed or pay the amount in full. You want to settle that charge off. And the reason why is because if you wait too long, what can happen is that the original creditor can sell that debt to a collection company. Once that debt is sold to a collection company, you're going to lose even more points off of the same debt. And that charge off is still going to be on your credit report. It's just going to have a balance of 0 because that creditor is obligated to report the history of that account. Not just the fact that you went that it was charged off. So I always say, if you have a charge off and it's recent, go and knock it out. Go and ask them, can you settle for less than owed, or go ahead and just pay it off now, because that also determines how long it's going to report on your credit. Let's say you don't pay it, you let it sit for a while, and then you dispute it later, and it comes back as validated. You've reset the statute of limitations, so now the company can come back and sue you. They have a longer opportunity to sue you because you've reset the statute of limitations. So whenever you have a recent charge off, I always say to go ahead and pay it. I did a self-lender account, but only saw a 5-point increase. Is that normal? Should I expect more? You guys add these accounts to your credit profile thinking that the account itself is what gets you the points, because you don't understand how your credit score is calculated. Every solution that you hear on social media or in these Facebook groups are not tailored to your situation. Your credit report is like your fingerprint. It is your financial fingerprint, and it determines your future, right? And so your fingerprints don't match anybody else's, and so your credit profile won't match everybody else's either. And so what I add to my credit profile and gets me a huge bump might not get you a huge bump, because that might not be what you need. The first step is going to always be to evaluate your credit profile. Did you need another account? Did you need another installment loan? I always tell people that a good baseline to work towards as far as what you need reporting on your credit profile at all times is 3 credit cards, 1 short-term loan, and 1 long-term loan. A short-term loan is an installment loan with a term length of 24 months or less, and then a long-term loan is an installment loan that takes a little longer than 2 years to pay off. And so if you have a lot of credit cards and no loans, then yes, adding a loan will be beneficial to your credit profile. Or if you have a lot of loans and no credit cards, adding a credit card will be beneficial to your credit profile. Or maybe adding another account wasn't what you needed, but on time, but your credit utilization was the biggest issue. So you definitely want to sit down and evaluate your credit score, your credit profile, to see why your score is the way it is and why adding this account did not give what it was supposed to give. Let's see what other questions we got. All right. Uh-oh. I added it to diversify my loans. I had a lot of credit cards, but no loans except my student loans. Okay, so then you added this on there. How long have you been paying on it? That's another thing. Time plays a part in these accounts. The biggest thing is that you added this account. So now you have what is considered a good mix of accounts. Mix of accounts is 10% of your credit score. So just give it time. Let the account sit, let the account age, keep make them as you keep making on-time payments, it's going to keep reporting, and that's going to be what kind of boosts your credit profile. Oh, it's only been 2 months. That hasn't been no time. Check back in around like the 6 to 7 month time period. You should see a larger increase, maybe not by a whole lot, but by the end of the life of the loan, you'll see the increase that you're looking for if this is what was needed to boost your credit profile. I want to get a personal loan to pay off all my credit cards. Any suggestions? I do not have any suggestions on a place you should go to for a loan, but this idea is a very good one. Things you want to look out for if you are thinking about considering a personal loan to pay down all your credit card debt. Make sure that the interest makes sense, right? If it has a high interest rate and it's higher than what you were going to be paying with your credit card, it's no point in you doing it. Make sure that you can actually make the payments. The payments may be a little bit higher than what you had with the credit card. You never know. But just make sure you kind of evaluate the pros and the cons, not just the idea of I've paid off all my credit card debt. Because yes, you've paid down all your credit cards, but now you've incurred another line of credit, a loan, and you can't miss none of these payments. So, just those are some things to think about if you are considering getting a personal loan to pay down your credit cards. Should we be afraid of FICO 10? No, I'm excited. So I'm excited for FICO 10T specifically. So FICO 10, there are slight differences in how the credit score is calculated, but I think that the biggest difference and what I'm so excited about is that when you look at your credit profile now, right? Like you'll see that it's like a screenshot. It's like when you look at something on Instagram and you screenshot it, right? That's what your credit report is. However, with FICO 10T, instead of only being like a screenshot, think of it like an IG reel or a TikTok. So it looks at a certain period of time instead of just that moment in time. So if you are somebody who pays your cards consistently, consistently low credit card utilization, and then 1 month you were late or 1 month your utilization was high, it won't have as much of an impact on you under FICO 10T because it looks at the trend, not just that one moment in time. So I'm super excited to see it. And plus, they said that any changes in your credit score will only be about 20 points max in both directions. Either more or less. So no, don't be afraid of it. But I will say that delinquencies will hurt the most. Like delinquencies will hurt even more. Like charge-offs, things like that. Especially if you got a history of it. Ooh. What other questions you guys got? Sorry. So technically, FICO 10 is already here. The credit bureaus already have the scoring system in place. It's just not being used widely. Is Credit Karma any good? It's not bad. It's just a different scoring model. So it depends on what you're applying for. If you are applying for something and you do your research and you see that lender checks your Vantage score 3.0, then the Credit Karma score should be dead on. But if you do your research and you see that lender is checking your FICO 8 score, then no, the Credit Karma score is not going to be accurate. There are a couple different ways to remove late payments. If it's an open account, then a goodwill letter is always a good approach. A goodwill letter is where you acknowledge that you were late and you ask for forgiveness. This is heavily dependent on the relationship that you have between you and your lender, meaning you need to have more on-time payments than late payments, and it needs to be a little while since your last late or missed payment. It's very important that you don't give up with this goodwill letter. Just because they tell you no the first time don't mean that that's a permanent no. Check my YouTube comments. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll read that in a second. It doesn't mean it's a permanent no. You can always go back and ask. So don't just give up just because you heard no that one time. Now, if it's a closed account, you can either dispute the validity of the late payments and how it's reporting, or again, you can just ask the company nicely to update those to paid as agreed. Now, again, you're kind of putting yourself at the mercy of that company. So if they say no, then no. And if you go to dispute the validity of the late payments and it's proven that you were late and that this is being reported legally and it's accurate, then you're stuck with it. The biggest thing when you have late payments is not necessarily repairing it, but how can you rebuild past that, right? So making sure that all of your accounts from that point forward is on-time payments. Remember, it's not an exact science, but it's approximately 7 on-time payments to bury 1 late payment. So think about that and think about how many accounts you have reporting every month before you be like, I don't know how to bury it, right? So if you only have 4 accounts reporting every month and it takes 7 on-time payments to bury 1 late payment, then it's going to take about 2 months for you to really effectively bury that late payment. And it's not that you won't see it anymore. You'll still see it and it'll still be there and it'll still cost you points. But the older it gets, the less of an effect it will have because of the on-time payments that you've kind of piled on top of it, if that makes sense. Hold on, I'm going back to YouTube right now. I have 2 more payments to pay off a credit card that a creditor closed. When it is paid, will my credit score go up? Not necessarily. Because the account was already closed, this has been hurting your credit utilization though. Because as you pay it down, your credit utilization is going to keep going lower and lower and lower. And then once it's paid off, it won't be calculated against your credit utilization anymore. So you may see an increase, but it won't be a lot if you do see an increase at all. The biggest thing is, okay, now this account, it's been closed. It's officially, I don't have nothing else to do with it anymore. What can I do to bury this derogatory account now? Okay, let me check Facebook. Let me check TikTok. How do you get access to those other FICO scores? FICO 10, you don't see that yet. I haven't been able to see it yet on any of the things that I use. But me personally, I have a My FICO subscription. Smart Credit is saying that they're getting FICO scores soon. Knock on wood. I think actually some people already have access to the FICO scores. But I personally have 2 subscriptions. So I have one with My FICO and one with Smart Credit for separate reasons. But I use My FICO to track all of my different FICO scores. So My FICO 8, 9, auto, credit card, mortgage, all that stuff. I'll use My FICO. Let me check. Which is better, a paid off account or an account at 3% balance? It depends on the type of account. So what kind of account is it? It depends on the type of account. Remember, there's 3 types of debt. There's 3 types of credit. I'm sorry. There is revolving credit or revolving lines of credit, which is like your credit cards or lines of credit with a bank or something like that. Then there are charge cards, which are different. And then there are installment loans. With credit cards, listen, having any kind of a balance on your card when it reports to the credit bureaus is better than having no balance reporting when they report to the credit bureaus. They want to see that you're using your credit. Credit utilization is key. So as low as possible without touching 0 is always the goal. Now, after your statement date, you feel free to pay it off so that you're not paying interest on these cards. That's completely up to you and what you're comfortable with. However, when it reports to the credit bureau, so on your statement date, you need to maintain some sort of balance. That is important. Let's see. Okay. I'm trying to make sure I'm answering everybody's question, I swear. Okay. Ooh, okay. So after you send your personal information update letter, right? If the information has been updated and you receive notification, perfect. You'll be able to move on to the next step. I will do a separate video to outline the next step, but we can talk about it on the Q&A. That's fine. The next step is going to be your Bureau Reinvestigation letter. Your Bureau Reinvestigation letter is where you put the credit bureaus on notice, like, hey, I pulled a copy of my credit report, and these are all of the accounts that I'm seeing as inaccurate. These are accounts that I want to be investigated. Please verify that this information is reporting accurately before I do so. That's pretty much what you're saying in these letters. Because a lot of you confuse the credit bureaus and the creditors and what their responsibilities are. So the credit bureaus, all they can do is verify. They verify, not validate. So the credit bureaus are going to go to the companies like, yo, did you mean to tell me this? And the company's going to be like, yeah, that's what I meant to say. And then they're going to come back to you and be like, verified. If it's still inaccurate, that's not the credit bureau's fault, it's the creditor's fault. So if you send off your Bureau Reinvestigation letter and you get a response like, nope, this information has been verified, tough titty, you're going to send something known as the method of verification letter. And you're going to say, hey, who did you speak with to verify this information? Can I please get that contact information? I'm going to be honest with you. I never wait for a response. I instantly move on to the debt validation letter, but I do send that letter out just in case I get a response, because remember, the objective of disputing is to either get the account removed or gather enough evidence to file a complaint with the CFPB. So I still send that letter out in the event that they're going to respond to me, but it's likely that instead of responding to me directly, they'll reach out to the company saying that I'm looking for them, and then the companies will start reaching out to me. But I don't wait for that either. I send a debt validation letter. Now, when you send the debt validation letter, this is not going to go to the bureaus. This is going to go to the creditors. So you're going to send your debt validation letter, and you're going to say, hey, I pulled a copy of my credit report, and I'm noticing that the information that you're reporting is inaccurate. Please provide me with the proof that not of a breakdown of this evidence, and evidence that not only a debt is owed, but that I am the party that owes this debt. Failure to produce this information is a violation of the FCRA, blah, 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 blah. You can say all that if you want. And so you'll send that letter off to the creditors and then you wait. Now, this is the part that a lot of people are kind of lost about. Simply because a lot of people don't understand what classifies as a proper debt validation. But a debt validation is something like a contract, a signed contract between you and the original creditor. Like, hey, my name is Markia Brown. Markia Brown, say that I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars every month until I pay this off. Or I agree to open this account and then I'm responsible for whatever happens with this account. So the promissory note, the contract, whatever it is that has your signature on it, where you said, hey, I'm responsible for this debt. That is what you are looking for. That is key. If they do not provide you that, so if they keep sending you like monthly statements, that is not the same thing. Don't get intimidated if they start telling you like, oh, we're going to take you to court. Okay, then take me to court. Because if you cannot prove it to me here now, then you're not going to be able to prove it to me there in court, and I'm going to win. The reason that a lot of these companies win when they do go to court is that you all aren't showing up to court. And so they get something known as an order of default, meaning that whatever it is they're asking for, they can get because there's nobody there to kind of object to what they're saying. So always go to court. Always go to court and get them to take a closer look at that, because if they're not responding to you in a letter, then you can prove willful non-compliance. Because if I was sitting here sending you letters and you couldn't respond to me, but you come to court with all of this information, that's willful non-compliance, because we could have handled this before it got to court, but you did not provide me the opportunity to do so because you never responded to my dispute. So, I definitely wanted to get that across. Oh, I don't know what happened to TikTok, but I can't see any comments. Like, I don't see any, not even the ones I had answered already. Hold on. Nope, I can't see none of the comments. Jesus, Mary, Joseph. Leave it up to me to break it. All right, what other questions while I'm working on this? Ooh, so I just did a Instagram reel because I try to shake up the content. So what you'll see on YouTube, what you'll see on TikTok, and what you'll see on Instagram typically ranges. It's not the same thing every single day on each platform. So today on Instagram, I posted a reel talking about your statement date versus your due date when it comes to your credit cards. Because when you pay your credit cards, it's extremely important in the whole credit rebuilding process. It's not enough to just be like, oh, well, I pay all my cards off by the due date. It's all about, okay, but when are you paying your cards off? So I typically tell people, if you can't identify your statement date, then what you need to be looking for is your billing cycle. That's always available on your bill. You'll pull up your billing cycle and you'll say, hey, my billing cycle is 30 days. So from the end of my last billing cycle to the end of this billing cycle is from this to this. 5 business days before the end of that billing cycle, you need to have submitted your last payment. You can spend whatever you want in a month when it comes to your credit cards, whatever you want in a month. However, when it boiled down to what your utilization needs to be reporting at, 5 business days before your the end of your billing cycle, you need to make sure you're making a payment so that your utilization is reporting at less than 10%. I know when you guys do your research, you see like, oh, 30% and all that stuff. No. If you do not have a 750, then it needs to be less than 10%. Oh no, you broke it. Okay, I'm back. Okay, I can see it now. Okay, I can see the comments on TikTok now. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what that was. So if you put a comment and I haven't responded to it, you don't think I saw it, just put your comment again. I tried to sign up for your help. Your website is acting up. I haven't gotten any error messages or anything like that from my website, from any of the systems that I have on there. It could be your phone. If you're on the phone, you could always send me an email and then I can kind of guide you through that process. How's about a charge off with old address and not with new married name from December 2016? Just because it's not your current name now does not mean that that account is reporting inaccurately. If they can prove that that was your name at the time that you opened that account, then that's going to validate that account. So that's not enough of a reason to get it removed. However, it might be enough of a reason to dispute it if you can remove that name from your credit profile. So that'll be enough to initiate a dispute. Probably won't get the removal based off of that, but it's enough to initiate a dispute. Is it possible for the statement date to be after the due date? No. So how it works is your statement date is always going to be no less than 21 days before the due date. But obviously, the way you guys pay your bills, you'll pay a bill before the due date and your due date is like 3 days later. And your statement date is 3 days later. That's because your statement date comes out before the bill, right? The statement date is the day that they draft the bill that tells you when your payment due date is. So you're making your payment before that bill is even drafted. So there is going to be a month where you have to make 2 payments because you've got to make sure you pay before your payment due date. But then after that, take a look at your account and pay it down before the statement date. And then you'll be on the right pay schedule, if that makes sense. Most people end up making 2 payments anyway, because what they do is they'll pay right before the statement date to pay it down to less than 10%. And then after the statement date, they'll make another payment to pay it all the way off so that they're not paying any interest. Okay, good. All right, I'm trying to make sure I answered all the questions. You're so welcome. What other questions you guys got for me? Hitmakers. That's my song. You guys got from me today? I think I got like another 30 minutes, right? Yeah, I got another 30 minutes. I'm not gonna answer that. I don't even know why I looked at that comment. I'm just gonna report it. I'm just gonna report this comment. I'm not even gonna read it out loud. All right. Well, y'all know how I do. If y'all don't got no more questions, I'll go ahead and get off the live. It's been great. I just really wanted to re-record that video for you guys so that you can have that. Again, if you weren't able to stay the whole time or if you had to leave early, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll be able to watch this literally as soon as I end the live. The video will be available. And in the beginning of the video, I outlined the very first step in the dispute process, which is a personal information update. And I talked about the enhanced personal information update letter that I talked about on TikTok. If you're following me on Instagram and you did not see that TikTok video, I highly suggest you go to my TikTok page and check it out. The enhanced personal update letter is very useful in identifying relationships between the information reporting and the derogatory accounts that it's tied to. So, as always, I try to provide you guys with the most accurate information when I can. So, share my pages, get everybody. Listen, I'm trying to get my subscribers up on YouTube. So get me to 1,000, y'all. Go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Tell your friends, tell your cousins, tell whoever. But thank you guys so much for the support. Y'all know my motto: live every day like it's your last, but pay your bills and wear condoms just in case it's not. And I will see all of you later.